Listening Library presents Lady and the Tramp, the junior novelization, adapted by Elizabeth Rudnick. Read for you by Tavia Gilbert.
Chapter 1. In the lovely little home Jim Dear and Darling called their own, the world was cozy, small, and safe. Their street was always quiet, the houses perfectly painted, the lawns well kept. Every morning, neighbors greeted Jim Dear with happy waves as he walked to retrieve his paper. Every evening, as he and his wife strolled down the tree-lined sidewalk, they heard the happy sounds of children playing, or the occasional friendly bark of a dog. Not a thing was out of place. It was perfect. Well, almost perfect. One evening, as snow began to fall outside, Darling sat on the floor by a roaring fire. Over her, their Christmas tree sparkled and twinkled, the ornaments catching the firelight. Darling was happy. She loved her husband with all her heart. She loved their home and every piece of furniture and knick-knack they had collected together. The end of the year and the holidays made her all the more grateful for everything she had. Sighing happily, she closed her eyes. Hearing footsteps, Darling started to open them again. "Keep them closed," Jim Dear said. "Keep them closed." "Okay, you can open them." Peeking with one eye, Darling cocked her head. Jim Dear held a hat box. His usually pale cheeks were rosy from the cold, and his hair, typically brushed back off his face in the tidy style of the day, was messy. Her husband was a musician and had the soul of a poet, but he tried hard to look dapper. "You think I need another hat?" she asked playfully. Jim Dear shook his head. Gently, he placed the hat box on the floor. "Guess again," he said. Just then, the box moved and made a rustling sound. Darling sat up straighter, her eyes widening. She got to her knees and carefully removed the lid from the box. Brushing away a layer of soft tissue paper, she let out a happy squeal as two big brown eyes appeared. It was a puppy. Darling reached in and lifted the puppy from the box. The cocker spaniel was adorable, with long, wavy brown ears and a brown and white body. She wiggled excitedly in Darling's hands. "Well, darling?" Darling looked up at her husband, and then back down at the puppy. "She's perfect," Darling cooed. "A perfect little lady." At the word, the puppy's tail wagged even faster. Lady had found a home. When Lady had been put in the hat box, it had scared her at first. But as soon as she had locked eyes with the kind woman who had opened it, she had felt safe and loved. For the rest of the evening, she sat in the woman's lap while the woman, who smelled of lavender and honey, gently rubbed Lady's belly and gave her kisses. Lady had discovered that her new humans were named Darling and Jim Dear, and that they loved each other, and her, very, very much. Only now, Darling and Jim Dear seemed to be leaving her. The moon had come out, and the stars were twinkling in the sky, so Lady knew it was night, but she wasn't sure why that meant she had to leave her new family. As they put a big dog bed down in the middle of the pantry, Lady wiggled in Darling's arms. "There, there, Lady," Darling said. Lady knew she was trying to make her feel better, but she didn't like the looks of the pantry door. A moment later, Jim Dear put a few pieces of newspaper down and gave her a pat on the head, and then they turned and left. The door shut behind them. Lady was alone. She stood still for a moment, looking from the bed to the newspaper to the heavy door. Letting out a little yip, she rushed at the paper and grabbed it between her teeth, shaking it. A puppy growl formed in the back of her throat. The noise she made startled her, and Lady dropped the paper. She moved to the door and shoved her nose against it. It didn't budge. She pushed again. This time the door swung a little bit. She pushed again and again until the door swung wide enough that she could slip through, out of the pantry. Wandering the house, she sniffed and nosed a pair of shoes on the floor. She hopped over a guitar. Then finally, she made it to the stairs. Lady looked up. The stairs were long. She hadn't noticed that before. But she had to get up them. At the top were Darling and Jim Dear. Taking a deep breath, Lady put both her front paws on the bottom stair. Then she pushed off with her back paws. She hung for a moment and then fell back to the floor. She wagged her puppy tail and tried again. She made it. Step by step, Lady worked her way to the top. By the time she reached the landing, she was out of breath. She had not been upstairs before. The hallway was dark and narrow, with several doors. Putting her nose to the ground, Lady followed the smell of lavender. Walking through an open door, she saw Darling and Jim Dear asleep on a bed. She made her way to it and jumped up, then flopped down on Darling's stomach. Murmuring, Darling rolled over, the movement landing Lady right atop Jim Dear's face. Startled, the man woke up. Seeing Lady, he sighed. But he did not, as she'd feared, take her back downstairs. Instead, he arranged a makeshift bed on the floor. He placed her down on it and crawled back into bed. Lady waited a moment, then jumped off her bed and back onto the human's bed. It was much more comfortable. Darling wrapped her arms around Lady and pulled her close. Next to her, Jim Dear sighed again. "All right," he said, his voice heavy with sleep. "Just for one night." Lady wiggled happily, pushing her body as close to Darling as she could. She closed her eyes. She didn't know what a Christmas miracle was exactly, but Darling had called her one several times. Whatever it was, she was glad she was one. Lady's one night turned into two, and then two more, and then two more. Soon 6 months had passed, and Lady was as much at home in the bed and house as Jim Dear and Darling. Her life had taken on a lovely routine. In the morning, she collected the paper from the end of the walk and promptly returned it to Darling. After a quick breakfast, Lady and Jim Dear took a stroll down the tree-lined street. If Jim Dear happened to forget, Lady had no problem reminding him. Leash in her mouth, she gave a quick bark and a wag of her tail, and Jim Dear was on his feet and heading for the door. Afternoons were spent exploring the yard. There was always something to see. A butterfly floating through the air in a zigzag pattern, a newly blossomed flower. Most days, Jim Dear took time to bring her a small, round ball, which he threw to her endlessly. She loved that game, especially because whenever she brought the ball back, she got a happy, "Good girl, Lady." Those were some of her favorite words. When evening came around and dinner was over, she, Darling, and Jim Dear curled up on the couch together while the humans read or listened to the radio. Lady fell asleep to Darling's gentle touch as she gave her belly rubs, and to the sound of Darling's soft voice as she told Jim Dear about her day. Life was perfect, just the three of them, with each of Lady's days better than the last. Chapter 2. Have you ever seen such a perfect dog? Lady sat in front of a long mirror, staring at her reflection. Behind her, Darling knelt down, a thin piece of leather in her hand. "No, I certainly haven't," Jim Dear replied. Lady wagged her tail. But when she looked up, she saw that Jim Dear wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his wife. Lady smiled. Her humans loved each other so much. Returning Jim's smile, Darling reached over and gently placed the leather collar around Lady's neck. Lady had been waiting for an official collar ever since she arrived at her new home. She had been too small before, but now that she was nearly grown, it was time. The collar was perfect, thin and delicate, just right for her little body.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?